Welcome to From Center Ice, the podcast. My name is Courtney, and this is not just any From Center Ice podcast episode. This is the From Center Ice happy hour, and if you are listening to this when it is uploaded, you may be thinking, Courtney, it's Sunday, not Friday, which, if you aren't new to From Center Ice or the happy hour, you know that they were designed to come out on a Friday evening to wind down your week and talk about hockey and the hockey news that has gone on around the NHL and sometimes the American Hockey League thrown in there, as well as any other hockey news from around the world. But it is Sunday, it is not Friday, but it is the Sunday after the preseason has concluded, and that would make it the Sunday before the regular season starts. And while we are no longer in the off season, just not fully in the swing of the season yet, if you have kids or you have attended school of any kind, which most of us have, you know that when fall comes back around or the end of summer comes back around and it is back to school time, there is always that panicky feeling of back to school. Even though it happens every single year, you know exactly what you're going to do. You're going to go school supplies shopping, perhaps, maybe get a new backpack, new clothes for the new school year, or you're just not going to do any of that and just show up on day one. Whichever way you roll into day one of school, I'm not here to judge. Both ways are very good. But there is always that panic mode of, oh my gosh, it's back to school season. What do I do? Even though, like I said, again, you do it every single year and it's usually always exactly the same. And once the school season starts, the back to school anxiety seems incredibly silly. Now, if you have ever talked to a hockey writer, a hockey podcaster, content creator of any kind, or maybe even just a hockey fan, you will know that we also get that feeling when hockey season comes back around. It's not back to school season necessarily, but it is back to hockey season, especially these last few years after we've had very short off seasons or misplaced off seasons, as after the 2020 bubble, it was in September through like December. So we haven't had a normal schedule. So that kind of contributes to it, because usually, again, going back to the back to school thing, it comes around every year at the same time. You do the exact same thing. Well, this hasn't really come around at the same exact time necessarily in the hockey world, and if you are listening to a hockey podcast, you know that very well. And the season also hasn't ended at the same time. So, like going back to 2020, we had the weird, like, late fall, early winter off-season thing going on, and then the season last year ran late, so that was a very short off-season, and then this year it even ran late as well, and it wasn't as crazy because we still got the 82 games in, but it was still different, and it was a short off-season, and now we're back. So I am recording this happy hour on a Sunday. All of that is coming back around to saying this. I'm recording this on a Sunday so that we can get this thing back into that normal schedule of Friday evenings, you have the From Center Ice happy hour, and Monday, at some point, you get the Cozy Cast. Now, I had designed the Cozy Cast to be uploaded Monday morning, but what I have come to find out recently with podcast uploads is that, at least for the video version, if you are watching this on YouTube, that it has been taking forever to upload. So the audio only people definitely get it earlier if you are one of those folks who listens to the podcast you like as soon as they drop, as soon as they hit your podcasting app. If you're one of those people, I am very envious, because I, on the other hand, am one of those podcast listeners who is severely behind on 99.9% of the podcasts that I listen to, which is kind of strange when it comes to hockey podcasts, because I've definitely, gotten to the off season and still been listening to episodes from like December, which is kind of nice in a way because you get a refresher of things that happened, but it's not very timely. So I try to listen to as many episodes as possible, especially of the shows that I really like, shows that my friends do, because I want to support them and hear what they have to say, even if it's not happening in that moment. But I am very envious of people who can see a podcast, hit their app, and go, oh, this is what I am listening to right now. I wish I could be one of those people. I think I just have too many shows I'm subscribed to that it doesn't work out that way. But again, all of that is very long-winded. Maybe that's what it's like on Sunday nights when I record episodes. They're just very long-winded. I'm not exhausted from the week on a Friday, and I'm not tired on a Monday morning doing the Cozy Cast. It's just long-winded Sunday. We're not adding that to the schedule because I already had one hell of a time keeping the happy hour and the Cozy Cast on schedule during the off-season. Spoiler alert, I did not at all. But that is why I am doing this Sunday night, so that tomorrow, on Monday, I can record a Cozy Cast. That will be more of a season preview. This episode will kind of wrap up what we saw in the preseason. Did I say preseason review? I don't even know what I said anymore. That will be a season preview. That's what I meant to say. If I said that, then this sounds very silly. But the Cozy Cast will be more of a season preview, and this happy hour podcast will be wrapping up the preseason and some news that has dropped and some other various things going on in the world of hockey. So, it is Sunday. I apologize this didn't come out on Friday. I had a rough week last week, but it's time to put that behind us because the regular season, the 2022-23 NHL season, begins on Tuesday. Sort of. There's already been 2 regular season games played between the Nashville Predators and the San Jose Sharks. So it kind of starts Tuesday. It starts for the rest of the league on Tuesday, even though there's only 2 games on Tuesday. This is what you get with the NHL. Again, if you're listening to a hockey podcast, you're probably sort of used to the antics, the NHL polls, where nothing really makes sense. But if you are listening to a hockey podcast because you are new to hockey or to the NHL, nothing ever really makes sense. So, yeah, we've had 2 regular season games played already, but the regular season starts Tuesday, and there's only 2 games on the day that the regular season starts. There are more games on Wednesday, but the season starts Tuesday, sort of. So, before I talk about some of the preseason stuff and some of the news that has dropped, I think I will begin by talking about those regular season games, just to get them out of the way, because they were an afterthought to the NHL. So we're just going to get them out of the way here at the beginning. But I guess before I jump into that, I should say, if you are new to From Center Ice, again, my name is Courtney. And for regular From Center Ice podcast episodes, I have my podcasting partner here with me, Jacqueline. And that is all sorts of chaos and fun with a side of hockey. I believe our last episode was Belly Buttons Part 2, because we have people who enjoy belly buttons who have somehow found our podcast channel and enjoy watching it. So have to give a shout out to the belly button people from time to time. But when it comes to the happy hours, that is just me. And again, typically they will come out on a Friday evening, wrapping up the news that has gone on in the hockey world. I did start it in the postseason this past playoffs when the Colorado Avalanche won the Stanley Cup. So there weren't as many games to talk about, so I was able to go over each game that happened between episodes and say the score, where the series was at. Now, with the regular season upon us, there are going to be a lot more games to talk about, so we might have to experiment here and there with the format of the happy hour and the cozy cast, because I want to talk about the games that have happened. Maybe I'll pick a select few. Maybe I will do a lightning round and just blitz through the scores that have happened around the league. If you have thoughts on either of those options, one that you prefer, one that you don't like at all, leave me a comment on the YouTube video for this episode. If you're watching, that's simple, scroll down, leave a comment. If you are listening to the audio only version, then you can go to YouTube, youtube.com/c/FromCenterIce. That link is also in the show notes. Or you can always just send us a tweet on Twitter or a message on Instagram. Really anything. Just let me know your thoughts there on what you would prefer or what you definitely don't like. But I've mentioned the Cozy Cast as well. Again, if you are new, the Cozy Cast is the counterpart to Friday evening's happy hour, and that comes out Mondays. That is to kick off your week with whatever has gone on over the weekend and to give you a preview of the week ahead. So without further ado, I will jump into this not Friday evening episode of the From Center Ice happy hour. I am drinking my last can of gay wine here. And if you recall, I think on the last happy hour episode, I said I was drinking my last can, which I did, but then I found them at Walgreens, and so I bought 2 more. I drank the first one a few days ago. I had a draft for a fantasy league I'm doing with some friends and other podcasters, so I had my first can of the 2 that I bought at Walgreens there, and I'm drinking the last one here. This is sort of a farewell to summer and to the off season, since I started drinking them on the podcast here in June for Pride Month. So this is a farewell to summer, which has been gone for a while if you consult the weather at all, especially here. Okay, Siri, why are you talking to me? Anyway, if you have consulted the weather, especially here in Northern Illinois, it's been rather chilly. So I do have a can of gay wine here. It is house wine. And it says limited edition rosé bubbles, but I don't know how limited it really is. But the cool thing about it is with each can that is purchased of this wine here, House Wine will donate $2 to the Human Rights Campaign. I'm sorry, that's for every case. They will donate $2. So yeah, it's pretty tasty, goes towards a good cause. It's a very fun can. So if you like rosé or wine, or if you are part of the LGBTQIA plus community like myself, try to find a can of this if you drink. If you don't, then, you could still buy it and have somebody else drink it and then just keep the can, or just make a donation yourself to the Human Rights Campaign. All of those are wonderful options. So, without further ado, I'm going to take a sip of said wine. All right. And we will talk about these 2 regular season games that have supposedly happened before the regular season started. So like I said, they were between the Nashville Predators and the San Jose Sharks. Both of the games were. One team, Nashville, was the home team. The other game, San Jose, was the home team. And the reason they played these 2 games ahead of time is because they were playing in Prague. So it is the NHL Global Series. You probably recall from seasons past where teams have played overseas. I know the Blackhawks did it one year. Was it Philly who did it also? Did Philly play the Blackhawks? That's possible. The New Jersey Devils did it once. I don't recall which other teams have, but this year it was the Predators and the Sharks. So due to travel and then them having to come back to the States, they played the 2 games earlier so they could just get into their regular schedule once they come back. And the cool thing was for their preseason, before these 2 games were played, they played international teams over there. So that was kind of nice. And when it comes to the NHL regular season games, the Nashville Predators swept that 2-game series. Game 1, the Nashville Predators won by a score of 4-1. The first goal of the NHL 22-23 season was scored by Nashville Predators' Kiefer Sherwood. It was assisted by Ekholm and McDonough. So on the first goal of the entire season for the entire league, not just the Predators, Ryan McDonough picked up an assist, of course, coming over in that trade from Tampa as they cleared some cap space. So he was getting in on the score sheet right off the hop. The second goal of that game was scored by San Jose by Tomas Hertl, and that was assisted by Timo Meier and Luke Kunin, who was formerly a Predator. The third goal of that game was scored by Eli Tolvanen, and that was assisted by Smith and Glass. And then Nino Niederreiter scored, assisted by Dante Fabro and Kiefer Sherwood, so 2 points on the night for the kid. And then at the end of the game, Matt Duchene put in an empty netter, and that was assisted by Granlund and Forsberg to make the score 4-1 in favor of Nashville. And I watched most of that game. It kind of speaks to how poorly the marketing campaign for it went by the NHL, if there even was one, because I didn't know that the regular season was starting on Thursday. I want to say it was. Maybe it was Friday. Yeah, I had no idea that it was starting, and it's kind of my job to know things about the hockey world. The only reason I found out was because said fantasy hockey league that I mentioned just a few moments ago, where I drank the other can of wine that I bought, they posted an update in our Discord server saying, don't forget to set your rosters because the regular season starts today with that game. Unfortunately for me and my first week matchup, I did not have any players from the Predators or the San Jose Sharks, so I didn't have to worry about that. But it did inform me that the regular season had started, and I saw that as a common thing across Twitter, at least, that people didn't know the regular season was starting, because we've had preseason games on every night until tonight, so I guess this is the perfect night to record this episode, really, because there's no games on. But we've been used to seeing games on the schedule, but they've been preseason games, so you see a game between the Preds and the Sharks. It's not anything strange. Just didn't realize it was a regular season game. But Nino Niederreiter getting that third goal of the game for Nashville. Of course, he came over as a free agent from the Carolina Hurricanes, already making a big impact, and he would also take that into game number 2. So in game 2, former Blackhawk Kevin Lankinen was in net for the Nashville Predators. UC Saros started game number 1, and Lankinen is their backup this season, which It hurts my heart. It's very cursed, because being a fan of the Blackhawks and not liking any other Central Division teams, obviously the Predators fall under that category. So seeing Kevin Lankinen, who I adored, coming up through the Rockford Ice Hogs and then into the Blackhawks, seeing him sign as a free agent over the summer with the Nashville Predators, it carves out a spot in your soul that is vacated by former goalies leaving your team. But he started that game, and as I already said, Nashville swept this 2-game series. So in his first game with the Predators in the regular season, he got a win. And I don't root for the Predators to win games. Again, as a fan of the Blackhawks, I just can't root for another team in my division. of course, unless it's in the playoffs when I was rooting for the Avalanche, because the Blackhawks weren't anywhere close to the playoffs, so I had to pick somebody. But during the regular season, I know some people can root for other teams within their main team's division. I just find it so hard. I don't know what it is. Of course, my second team being the Toronto Maple Leafs. If you are new to From Center Ice, then now you know my second team is the Toronto Maple Leafs, but those are two different conferences, and that makes it a bit easier. But seeing Kevin getting a win in his first game after things were so up and down here in Chicago, and very much down last season when this team was very bad, seeing him get a win in his first regular season game in Nashville, it kind of warmed my heart a little bit, because I want personal success for Kevy. It's just, I can't root for the Predators, but I will root for him to play well. But the first goal of that game was scored by San Jose, actually. Luke Kunin, of course, former Predator, like I mentioned before, scored the first goal of the game, assisted by Lindblom and Ferraro. The second goal was scored by the Nashville Predators' Nino Niederreiter, his second goal of the season, second goal with the Nashville Predators. That is 2 goals in 2 games for the newly acquired forward. You could say that was a pretty good free agent pickup there. That was assisted by Johansson and Yossi. The third goal of the game was scored by Logan Couture of the San Jose Sharks, assisted by Lawrence and Ferraro. 2 assists on the game for Ferraro there. The third goal of the game was scored by Nashville. That went to Philip Forsberg, his first of the season after signing a big old contract during the summer. That was assisted by Duchesne and Granlund. And then the final goal of the game was scored by the Nashville Predators' Nino Niederreiter, his second goal of the game, his third goal of the season. He is leading the NHL in goals right now, assisted by Tolvanen and McDonough, getting his second assist as a Nashville Predator. And that's 2 points in 2 games for McDonough. So point per game player there in Nashville. I don't know how long that'll hold up, but he is a very good defenseman, as we all know, winning those back-to-back cups in Tampa. So the Nashville Predators won Game 2 by a score of 3-2, sweeping that series, leading the league, the number 1 overall team, the Nashville Predators, first in the league, first in the Western Conference, first in the Central Division for now, because technically the regular season hasn't even started yet, but don't tell those 2 teams that. So that's how those 2 games went over in Prague. And that brings us back to the States here, back to the past, or past times in preseason, since some teams are in the future here. Alex Galchenyuk, he was on a PTO with the Colorado Avalanche, and he was released from that, which was kind of surprising to me. The study of Alex Galchenyuk's career will be so interesting once it's officially over. I want to say he was a 3rd overall pick to the Montreal Canadiens, and then he was traded to Arizona, ended up with Toronto. I feel like he was somewhere else in between, and then goes to Colorado on a PTO, and unfortunately he got injured in camp. So I was kind of surprised when I saw the notification that he was let go from his PTO and not signed to even a league minimum contract by the Avs. So I had to look into it, and he was injured in training camp. Jared Bednar, the head coach for the Colorado Avalanche, said he really liked Galchenyuk's camp. Sorry, a little tongue-tied there. And they may get back to him when he is fully healthy and maybe revisit a contract of some sort with him. I just thought that was really unfortunate. A guy who really hasn't found his footing on any NHL team. when he did end up with Toronto, that was the year that the Maple Leafs and the Canadiens met up in the first round of the playoffs when there was the North Division, only Canadian teams, and nobody had the Habs winning like even a single game in that series, and Toronto got goalied by Carey Price, and it wasn't just Price. He was a big reason for that series win for the Canadiens, obviously, but they did a really good job of adapting to Toronto's game and just shut them down defensively when it really mattered. That we don't need to revisit that series. It was looking real good for Toronto, and then it was very much not, and the Habs went on to the Stanley Cup final. Anyway, that was the year that Galchenyuk was with Toronto, and he was actually pretty good for the Leafs. He was contributing offensively, showed off some of his skill. It's just like so many other stops along his journey in the NHL. Can't put it all together consistently, and then gets maybe overly criticized for bad mistakes. Of course, when it came to his time in Toronto, they were definitely magnified because they were in the playoffs, which is a whole clusterfuck when it comes to the Toronto Maple Leafs in general. But it was also against the Canadiens, and they got knocked out in the first round again, and you could point to some of his mistakes for some of that. So I felt bad for the guy there, and then I felt bad again reading that he got let go from his PTO, but I hope that whatever is injured on him, I'm not sure what the injury is, I hope he's able to heal up quickly and get back to 100%, and maybe he can get a contract with the Avs. Maybe he signs a leagueman two-way deal and plays some time with the Colorado Eagles, and then that doesn't count against the Avs cap at all if they sign him low enough. So I don't know, we'll see. I just hope that at some point, somewhere, at some stop along the way, Alex Galchenyuk can have a redemption season, even if it's just one, because I feel bad for the kid. But coming into this preseason here, Josh Anderson, also of the Montreal Canadiens, he hadn't played a game prior to October. He was listed as having an upper body injury. And while I was reading some injury updates, I saw that apparently he had a spider bite that caused his hand to swell up. And that was his upper body injury. Like, it was so bad and so swollen that he couldn't play because a spider bite had caused his hand to swell up. That's what I saw, I think, on CBS Sports. I didn't look to see if there were any photos of this mysterious swollen hand from a spider bite, but that is what I read. So if you have photos of this, send them my way through DMs on Twitter or Instagram or whatever. I just thought that was... I've never read something like that when it comes to a hockey injury. He couldn't play because he had a spider bite. He was likely to play October 1st against the Ottawa Senators. I haven't looked into it to see if he has played yet, so I'm sure he has fully recovered from that spider bite and he is back. But that was just beyond bizarre. Also bizarre, before I get to some news about some contract signings, yesterday, Kyle Okposo of the Buffalo Sabres was named the captain of the team. And that's kind of a big deal, right? You know, captain of a very beloved team by their fan base. Of course, that relationship is extremely rocky with how the team has been run and how the owners have treated a bunch of different situations. But if there's anything that you can say about the Buffalo Sabres, it's that their fan base is beyond passionate and they love their Sabres through thick and through thin. And that's something that you cannot question because it has been very rough in Buffalo, and people still care about the Sabres. Sorry, I had to take a drink there. But what was surprising about that to me, I was scrolling through NHL.com looking at the news articles that were posted before I hit record on this episode so I could see if anything crazy broke. And I was on Twitter most of the day yesterday because there was the second regular season game. So I guess the first one was on Friday, and then the next one was yesterday, Saturday. They played back-to-back. And then the Blackhawks played their final preseason game, which we will get to, and the Leafs played their final preseason game. So I was on Twitter most of the day yesterday, and I did not see one single thing about Kyle Okposo being named the captain of the Buffalo Sabres, even though that is big news, and a guy who is pretty well respected around the league. I only saw it when I checked the news tab on NHL.com today, and I thought that was very surprising. And I guess when people are reminded, maybe not the right word, but it's the word I'm going to go with because that's kind of what it feels like when they are reminded of Kyle Okposo. You never hear a bad word said about him. Maybe it comes down to him being kind of hidden during his career. So he was drafted in the first round in 2006 by the New York Islanders. He was taken 17th overall, so a pretty high draft pick there. And then he spent a good chunk of his career with the Islanders, and then going to the Buffalo Sabres. This is going to be his 7th season in Buffalo. And of course, they have not been good that entire time. So people outside of Sabres fans, or maybe people who live in the area, don't necessarily pay attention to the Sabres all that much. And when it comes to the Islanders, they kind of get overshadowed by the Rangers. At least that's the opinion I have coming from the Central Division over here, somebody who lives in Illinois, lives in Blackhawks land. When it comes to hockey news out of New York, at least out of the New York City area, we're going to include Long Island in that, you hear mostly about the Rangers and not the Islanders. So maybe that's what it comes down to, is he's just kind of been hidden throughout his career playing for those two teams. He's also lost a bunch of games due to injury, which is really unfortunate. Maybe if he hadn't suffered through some of those injuries, he would have hit some milestones that would make him stand out a bit more in the eyes of the casual fan. But maybe not. Again, playing for the Sabres, playing for the Islanders. If you're not on the East Coast over there, maybe you don't pay attention to those teams. But again, when people are reminded of Kyle Okposo, nobody has a bad word to say about him because he is a very well-respected player in the league and a very good player in the league. This is going to be his 16th season in the NHL. He's played 909 regular season NHL games, scoring 219 goals and 345 assists for 564 points, which, not bad. 564 points in 900 and change games. Not bad, especially on some very bad Buffalo Sabres teams. In the playoffs, back with the Islanders, he's played 24 games, scoring 7 goals and 8 assists. And his career with the Buffalo Sabres, he's played 380 games with the team, scoring 80 goals and 115 assists for 195 points. Again, definitely not bad, but not a guy who's going to come in and set the world on fire like Jack Eichel was supposed to, or like Dylan Cousins now, or Alex Tuck now that he's with Buffalo, or John Tavares in New York, or now Matthew Barzal in New York. So he's not one of those flashy names. He's just consistently a solid player and obviously well regarded and thought of as a leader in the room. He's worn a letter on his sweater for the majority of his career between the Islanders and the Sabres. He had an A on his sweater, but now he is officially the captain of the Buffalo Sabres. And back when I was in college, I kind of had a soft spot for the New York Islanders. They were like a third or fourth team, if you will. That's how I became a fan of Calvin DeHaan, who has me blocked on Twitter for some reason. And I also became a fan of Kyle Okposo during those years with the Islanders. So it's just kind of nice to see his career coming to this point where he's finally healthy, playing games again consistently, and now he's been named captain of a very beloved team by their fan base, who hopefully they can get some successful seasons coming up here pretty soon, because it's been a long time coming for that fan base and they need something good. So congratulations to Kyle. It's wonderful news and I'm happy for him, and I hope this season goes a little better for Buffalo. They ended the season pretty strong last year, especially after getting Alex Tuch and Peyton Krebs for Jack Eichel. So we'll see how this year goes. But I hope it goes well. And that brings me to some news about some contract signings. So Jake Allen up in Montreal, lots of Montreal ties in this news dump section here. He signed a 2-year extension with the Canadiens with a cap hit of $3.85 million. He is their number one goaltender, with Carey Price's career kind of a big question mark right now. They're relying on Jake Allen, and behind him, Samuel Montembeault, and signed a 2-year extension. So good for him. I don't know how that's going to go in Montreal this year. Of course, last year it didn't go very well at all. It went better after the coaching change when Martin St. Louis came in as the interim head coach. He was named full-time head coach this offseason, but they did have the first overall draft pick. You can expect them to probably be a bit better this upcoming season, but that is not a guarantee. They weren't very good in the preseason, but preseason doesn't matter, and anything can happen. Sometimes teams are terrible in the preseason, then they go on a crazy run and they win the President's Trophy. Not saying that's going to happen to the Montreal Canadiens, just saying that a bad preseason doesn't necessarily mean a bad regular season. So we'll just have to see what happens there. And jumping back to the Islanders, lots of, recurring teams here. Matthew Barzal signed an 8-year extension with the Islanders. I felt like this was very quiet news as well, just like Kyle Okposo being named captain of the Sabres. So I'm not sure what's going over there in New York State, but news just kind of isn't leaking out past the state lines unless you search for it. Anyway, it kicks in next year, and it has an average cap hit of $9.15 million per season. And that was certainly a choice. So Barzal's career high in points was 85 in the 2017-18 season. And the 4 years after that, he had 62, 60, 45 points in 55 games. That was the shortened season, and 59 points respectively. So since that 85-point season, he hasn't gone over 62 points in a season, and he was given $9.15 million for 8 years. That is a choice. Now, I'm not saying that he won't live up to that contract. I'm not saying that Matthew Barzal is a bad hockey player, because that's not the case. It's just, you're not really paying him for what he has done, because he's only hit 85 points once, and that was in 17-18. And this past season was the lowest of the four, except for the 45 points in 55 games played in the shortened season. So I'm not really sure what the thought process was behind giving him a massive contract. I don't know. That's one where we will just have to see how it plays out, and hope for the best for Barzal and the Islanders, but not sure I would have made that choice. Maybe Lou Lamoriello is smarter than I am, and of course I'm being a bit silly there. Lou, he's had a very long career in hockey. He's had a very successful career in hockey. I'm not going to doubt the decisions that Lou Lamoriello makes. I kind of doubt this one a little bit, but Matthew Barzal is a very, very talented hockey player, and I believe he can live up to that contract. It's just, will he live up to that contract? Of course, with the cap expected to go up by a few million in a couple seasons, it's not going to hurt as bad. But in the meantime, the Islanders may be a team to keep an eye on when it comes to their cap situation there. In a deal that makes a lot more sense to me, we have Jason Robertson finally signing a deal with the Dallas Stars, 4 years at $7.75 million per season. Now, that is kind of a deal that would make more sense for Matthew Barzal. Of course, he is making $7 million this year, so it's not much of a raise if they were to give that contract to Barzal. Jason Robertson was coming off of his ELC, so it is a significant raise for him. But he seems to be trending a bit better than Barzal, perhaps. And I know now that I have said all of this, Matthew Barzal's gonna win the Rocket Richard Trophy. He's gonna be the Art Ross winner. He's gonna have a fantastic season, and people are gonna look back on this episode and be like, "You're a little crazy," and that's fine. I'll admit that I was wrong if that happens, but that is only one season, and this thing is 8 years long, so we'll see. In other New York State news, Jimmy Vesey signed a 1-year deal with the Rangers. He was on a PTO during training camp and preseason. He scored 1 goal and 2 assists in 5 preseason games. He was previously with the Rangers, then spent last season with the Devils, goes back to the Rangers, gets a contract. Good for him. In other contract news that's not about a player, Daryl Sutter received a 2-year extension as the head coach of the Calgary Flames. So that kicks in next year, and that takes him through the 2024-25 season. In other Flames news, they signed defenseman Mackenzie Weegar, of course, a part of that big old Matthew Tkachuk trade that brought Jonathan Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar and Cole Schwindt and a first-round pick, I believe, to Calgary. They signed him to an 8-year extension, and that is worth $6.25 million per year. That is a pretty good deal for Calgary. That trade could end up being a complete steal by the Calgary Flames, since they did get Huberdeau and Weegar and Cole Schwindt and a first-round pick, potentially. You never know who that's going to become. That could be a steal of a massive trade. Or if the Florida Panthers go on to win a Stanley Cup and Matthew Tkachuk is on their roster, who cares? They won a cup. That's another one. We'll just have to wait and see. But it's looking better and better for the Flames as time goes on here. And in former Chicago Blackhawks news, Calvin DeHaan, who has me blocked on Twitter for some reason, signed a 1-year deal to go back to the Carolina Hurricanes worth $850,000. He was also on a PTO with them during training camp and preseason. Earned himself a contract. He's a really nice defenseman to have as a depth piece. I feel like he just played too far up the lineup in Chicago, and that was the problem, especially with how his body has worn down from so many years of playing rough minutes and blocking shots and playing sort of a physical game. He's not someone you're going to be like, oh, Calvin DeHaan's a big bruiser out there, but he knows how to use his body, and he's had some pretty rough injuries. So good for him for getting that 1-year deal. I hope it works out in Carolina, and maybe one day Calvin will forgive me for whatever I did and unblock me on Twitter. Still don't know what I did. But all of this signing news brings me to some cap shenaniganery, which was broken today. And I need to find this tweet here. Let's see. So the Tampa Bay Lightning, of course, are involved again when it comes to some cap shenaniganery. They signed PC Labrie to a 1-year deal, and Labrie is a former Ice Hog, so the ties run deep here. And so these tweets are from Puckpedia, at Puckpedia, and the first one says, the Bolts signed 35-year-old UFA forward Pierre-Cedric Labrie to a 1-year deal. NHL salary of $770,800. His games played performance bonuses equal $500,000, and in the minors he would make $100,000. His cap hit is $770,800, and his AAV is $1,270,800. So there's a lot of numbers there. Just stick with me. They don't really matter all that much. It's just the concept of it. Why was he signed to such a specific number? See the next tweet. So you scroll down, see the next tweet. With Labrie at $770,800, the Bolts roster tomorrow with 13 forwards, including Fortier and Labrie up and Kopke down, $6,874,967 over the cap. That is $33 from Seabrook's $6.875 million cap hit to maximum LTIR, because of course the Chicago Blackhawks traded Brent Seabrook's contract to the Tampa Bay Lightning and got Tyler Johnson in return. After submitting Monday, they can add Cirelli at $4.8 million and possibly Bogosian at $850,000 to LTIR and add cap space. Should also add that with Labrie having $500,000 in performance bonuses, when he's sent down, the Bolts will keep that in their pool to absorb any performance bonuses for players recalled, meaning they'll only count for the cap hit, not their AAV. So, there's a lot to process there when it comes to numbers and cap maneuverings and all of that, and if you are a person that is into the NHL salary cap, all of that probably made a bunch of sense to you, and congratulations if you are Brandon Pridham. But why I brought that up is to say that it is absolutely ridiculous that NHL teams have to go through all sort of number gymnastics to try to fit their rosters under this salary cap. And who does it help? Who does it help? It doesn't help anybody. It's confusing for fans. It's a headache for NHL teams and owners and GMs. Sure, maybe a guy gets a contract like PC Labrie, but I'm sure maybe he would have gotten an AHL contract somewhere. He's been around a time or two. The salary cap is supposed to be there to create parity in the league. But since 2010, you have the Blackhawks winning the Stanley Cup in 2010, the Bruins in 2011, 2012, you have the Kings, 13 the Blackhawks, 14 the Kings, 15 the Blackhawks, 16, 17 the Pens, then you have the Caps, the St. Louis Blues, and then back-to-back Tampa, and then Colorado. That's not that many teams, considering that's over a decade's worth of Stanley Cups handed out. The good teams are very good in your Tampa Bays and your Avalanches and your Carolina Hurricanes and whoever else comes up. The Toronto Maple Leafs, they can't get out of the first round, but, it is what it is. Coming up, the New York Rangers, the Edmonton Oilers with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl are trying to finally do something. They got to the Western Conference Final last year. But the good teams are good. The bad teams, Arizona, Chicago, it hurts to put them in that list. The Montreal Canadiens, the Buffalo Sabres of so many years, the Ottawa Senators of so many years. Don't worry, Ottawa fans, I'm not saying this year, I'm saying of so many years prior to this year. The bad teams are bad. They don't want to be good because they want the draft picks. You're not creating parity, you're just creating headaches. And I don't understand why there is no luxury tax for these teams. I know it's been brought up by a bunch of different people who talk about the NHL, bunch of different personalities around the league. Why is there no luxury tax? Have these good teams pay extra money into a pool to go over the cap, and that money helps, fund the worst teams. So maybe the Arizona Coyotes don't have to play at ASU, or the Ottawa Senators could actually get an arena somewhere that is easily accessible, or, whatever. It goes toward funding other things, and the teams who can do it would do it. The Toronto Maple Leafs, who can basically just print new money at will, would do it. Tampa Bay, who would do any sort of shenaniganery to win the cup, would do it. These owners who are just, bathing in money would pay these luxury taxes to have the best players on their teams, entice players to come. And then, maybe you'll get the quote-unquote dynasty teams, like people are worried about some hockey team becoming the, what's that baseball team in New York? I don't even know. Why am I blanking on this right now? It doesn't matter. Becoming one of those teams that has all sorts of money, so they lure in all of the free agents. You still have that. I mean, look at all of the beloved dynasties that have existed throughout the NHL. You have the Montreal Canadiens, the Edmonton Oilers, the New York Islanders. Why do you want to destroy that for the sake of parity? And it doesn't even create parity. Again, the bad teams are bad. The teams who don't have as much money, Arizona, are bad, and they want to be bad. You're not creating parity by having this salary cap. Again, you're just creating a headache. And that is why I bring up that specific contract for PC Labrie, because it is absolutely preposterous that this is in the rule books for the NHL, that teams have to go through this just trying to get a few $1 million under the cap here and there, a few hundreds of $1,000s under the salary cap, have people on LTIR, long-term injury reserve, where their salary cap does not count toward your cap space and can, in some situations, get you cap relief. You shouldn't have to use injured players to your advantage so you can have a better roster. That is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And again, the teams who can spend money will find the ways to spend money. Toronto had taken on so many injured players over the year, trying to add cap space so they can get other players. You have teams that can't really do that, and you have teams that trade for guys who have high cap hits but aren't owed actual real cash because they can't pay them, but they have to meet the salary cap floor. This is so dumb. It's so dumb, and it's so disruptive to these players' lives, because if they're injured, and a lot of times when players are traded for the big salary cap but no money, they are injured or quote-unquote medically retired. They don't have to move state to state, but if they're not and they're still playing but they have one of those contracts, then they're just yanked around by teams who can't afford to pay better players to play for their team, to be better, to then make more money because people want to come to the game, so you get more revenue. It's just a vicious cycle, and it's just ridiculous. I don't have the answer to it outside of some sort of luxury tax system, and if I had an idea, I'd probably be employed by the NHL because it would be making them more money and it would make more sense. So I don't have the answers. Somebody out there has to have the answers, but it seems like Gary Bettman is just too bullheaded in his idea of the salary cap for parity and trying to make Arizona a thing, that this is never going to happen while we have Gary Bettman as commissioner. So there's the cap shenaniganery. I'm almost to an hour here. I'm definitely going to go over with this one, but there are some things that I wanted to talk about. So that brings us to the last signing that I wanted to talk about, and that is, once again, with the Montreal Canadiens. You know what? I'm actually going to take a sip of my wine before I talk about this. You'll see why. Alright, so the Montreal Canadiens, if you'll recall, in the 2021 NHL entry draft, they selected a player in the first round who should not have been drafted. He asked not to be drafted because he was caught spreading explicit photos of a young woman that he had sexual relations with without her consent. That is illegal. That is a form of sexual abuse. Anyway, this player, Logan Mailloux, was drafted in the first round by the Montreal Canadiens and Marc Bergevin when he was still the GM of the team. I bring that up because it will contribute to a point I'm going to make. Marc Bergevin was the GM of the team when they made this pick. And recently, he signed his 3-year entry-level contract with the Canadiens. Now, credit to Habs fans, a lot of them were not happy with the draft pick, even though ignoring, if you can, the horrible things that Logan Mailloux did. By all accounts, a talented defenseman in the game of hockey. So Montreal decided to just not care about what his victim went through and draft him in the first round, even though Logan himself, we're not giving him much credit here, it's just part of the story, came out and said, "Do not draft me." I don't have the statement written down, or I don't have it off the top of my head either. But he basically said to not draft him, he doesn't deserve it, blah, blah, blah. But Montreal did. So they signed him to his ELC recently, his entry-level contract. And that in itself raises red flags raises red flags in the minds of hockey fans who know what happened. Sorry, I'm a little distracted because there was some news that I'm going to get to in a minute here. Don't worry, it's all part of this. But it raised some red flags. But then I saw this tweet today, and it was tweeted out 11 o'clock this morning, it appears. And Chantel Maccabee, I'm not sure if that is how her name is pronounced. She is the vice president of communications for the Montreal Canadiens. She was replying to a tweet. I don't know what the initial tweet said. I only have a screenshot of this that was tweeted out. But she said, I'm going to read it here. Again, she is the VP of Communications for the Montreal Canadiens, the NHL team, the Montreal Canadiens. She is the VP, the Vice President of Communications. She was replying to somebody and said, Logan was not convicted of sexual misconduct. He was convicted for sharing an explicit photo of a woman without her consent. Again, that is sexual misconduct. And again, this woman, Chantel Maccabee, that's just what I'm going to go with the pronunciation. I've said it when it comes to Colin Delia's name. If you're going to pronounce it wrong, just choose one and be wrong with it consistently. Chantel Maccabee tweeted, he was not convicted of sexual misconduct. He was convicted for sharing an explicit photo of a woman without her consent. This tweet has now been deleted. Screenshots last forever. Nothing is ever gone on the internet. But this woman, Chantel, is the vice president of communications for the Montreal Canadiens. And I make such a point to say that because they had gone through this whole thing, like we drafted him, we believe he can learn and grow, and, you know, the thing that all teams say when they sign or draft somebody who has a questionable history and they get some backlash for it. We believe he will mature, learn from his mistakes, blah, blah, blah. So they sign him to his ELC. She says this a few days later. And before she tweeted out this nonsense, you could say that they signed Logan Mailloux to his ELC because he had learned from what he had done. He has taken the time to understand why that was wrong and to grow from it and to mature into a better young man, and he will have a flawless record going forward, treating all women and all people with respect. And I don't know that many rational people would have necessarily believed that, but crazier things have happened, so it could be possible that that was the case, that the Montreal Canadiens really took into account the fact that this signing may impact some of their fans, some of their players, some of their players' families, or anybody who has had to deal with any form of sexual abuse, that this signing may impact them because, once again, some hockey player is getting a chance to live his dream, play in the highest of leagues after committing a criminal offense, and an NHL team just being like, meh, it doesn't matter because he's good at the hockey and good at scoring the points and all of that. So they could have tried to make it out like he had grown from it, become a better person, and that when they got rid of Mark Bergevin, who made the pick, like I said, that was them moving forward into a new era, a new team philosophy that really embraced doing right by the community and not drafting or signing players who have sexual misconduct on their record, which, I mean, they are in Canada, and we have Hockey Canada going through all their nonsense. So that brings me to this tweet that Ian Kennedy of the Hockey News and Yahoo Sports tweeted out 3 hours ago now, saying, "We've got Hockey Canada, Ian Cole's allegations, Habs staffers defending Logan Mailloux gaslighting victims. What in the holy hell is simultaneously happening?" And I wanted to insert this into this happy hour episode, which this topic is not very happy, but the happy hour doesn't necessarily mean that all of the topics are happy, and this is why I don't mind going over my set time of an hour. But I wanted to get this in here because while the regular season is right around the corner, or has started for 2 other teams, and people are getting excited about hockey, and your team's gonna start playing games that matter, especially for the good teams. Can Colorado do it again? Can Tampa Bay come back? Maybe it was one year they don't win, then they come back and do it again. Can Carolina finally get to the Cup final? Can the Rangers go on a run like that again? Will Edmonton actually get to the Cup final now that they have new goaltending? All of these exciting things that fans could pay attention to. And we have to be reminded, once again, going into a regular season, that the hockey culture, the culture surrounding this game that we love as fans, as maybe some of you play hockey, I've never played, people who talk about the league, the NHL, maybe people who talk about the AHL, the ECHL, the PHF, the PWHPA, teams and leagues overseas, hockey fans around the world. We have to be reminded once again, because of people's ignorance, that hockey culture is so flawed, and it shelters these young men so much that they feel like anything they do, they can just get away with, because if they're good at hockey, they're still gonna get to live their dreams no matter what. It doesn't matter what they do. They can, in the case of Hockey Canada, you can have numerous amounts of sexual assault. This most recent case with, was it 2018? The 2018 Team Canada World Juniors team. I could be getting that year slightly off. I don't have that written down necessarily. But there were multiple players from that team involved with sexually assaulting one person. And we come to find out that Hockey Canada has these accounts just set aside of money so they can settle these cases outside of court and pay off victims and survivors. This is just something they know is going to happen, so they're prepared for it. And that hasn't been big news, that they just know there's going to be sexual assault involving their players or their staff members, and they're just ready to pay out because why? Because it just happens? Boys will be boys? That flawed concept? Like, after everything that happened, it didn't happen last year, of course, but everything that came out last summer and beyond about the Chicago Blackhawks and Kyle Beach, and that horrible fucking video coach, I'm not even going to say his name, after all of that came out, and I know Jacqueline and I kind of touched on this briefly in one of our episodes, and the dark place that we went to really trying to pay attention to that and call attention to what our team had done. And it was such a low moment, especially as a fan of the team. You know that you can't necessarily root for a different team. That's not really how fandom works. So trying to reconcile all of that, but not knowing how to because of how badly they ruined somebody's life. Going through all of that, I personally was not mentally able to fully dive in to everything that went on with Hockey Canada. So I don't know every horrible detail about it. I tried to keep up as much as I can on the surface level of what was happening and the timelines and all of that. So I don't know every single detail because I could not dive into that again. But that just goes to show you that there are so many organizations out there, be it different hockey teams, the Blackhawks, the Penguins, what they've gone through, different hockey teams around the NHL, the AHL, when, you know, there were some things involving Kyle Beach with the Ice Hogs, Akeem Alou, and when he was playing in the ECHL also, I want to say, and now Hockey Canada, one of the most well-known organizations because the Canadian international teams are always amazing. They just brush these horrible things to the side and keep these staff members or these players with the team because it results in wins, and they're just willing to pay off all of the people coming forward, you know, trying to bring light to the situation if they are victims or survivors. It's incomprehensible that this game that we all love, because you're sitting here watching a hockey podcast of just me rambling into this microphone right now. We all love this game of hockey, and the culture surrounding it and how these young men who grow into full-grown adult men and old adult men, how they have been so sheltered and led to believe that they can do whatever they want and just get away with it because they are talented. And then they don't face any repercussions. Historically, that's starting to change a little bit, and that comes back to the news that broke while I was recording this that I was talking about. It's so hard to wrap your mind around that I feel like even just laying this bit out, I have talked in circles, which I felt like I did so often when it came to talking about the Chicago Blackhawks and Kyle Beach, because it's just impossible to wrap your mind around these teams, these organizations, these leagues that bring you the most joy. Some of your favorite memories involve these guys. And yet, you dig a little deeper, and you don't have to dig that deep, but you dig a little bit, and you just find scum. And it's no longer happiness. It's people's lives who have been destroyed, or moments in their life that have really defined them and put them through so much pain. Meanwhile, on the outside, to fans and maybe some media members who are more disconnected from the teams, Obviously, some are going to know some of the bad things that are going on, but they never wanted to ruffle any feathers. God forbid you don't get access to the team. But people who are more removed from it and wouldn't know about these bad things that are going on, in the case of the Blackhawks, at least, because that's what I know most personally, and is probably how it goes for Hockey Canada as well, with how successful that team has been since its conception. You have all of these amazing memories and all of these victories and championships, and they're some of the best moments that you have gone through as a fan. And then you come to learn all of the horrible stuff that was going on and all of the lives that were impacted during that same time period. It's really hard to reconcile that. And that's what was so hard personally for me about last season. And I mean, it's always going to be when it comes to the Blackhawks and Kyle Beach. I do truly believe they are trying to not move past it. That's the wrong phrase, but to implement systems that will more so take care of their players. At least I hope so. I want to truly believe that that is what is going on in Chicago, that the players and all of the staff members will be taken care of and listened to, and if they have concerns about anybody, that there's somebody higher up they can bring those to and they will be listened to. I do want to have faith in Kyle Davidson and in not Rocky after all that we have gone through, but and Danny Wirtz, that they're really trying to implement these systems and make the Chicago Blackhawks a better franchise. I don't know that we can say that about Hockey Canada yet. We did see a resignation recently. But I don't know how deep all of that goes. Obviously, it goes pretty far to the top. A lot of people had to know about everything going on, and with there just being accounts of money to pay people out, a lot of people have to know about this. It's just, it's hard to wrap your mind around. And in that tweet that I read, I'll bring it up once again, from Ian Kennedy, again of the Hockey News and Yahoo Sports Canada and Yahoo Sports NHL. We've got Hockey Canada, just covered. Ian Cole's allegations, which I'm going to talk about in a second. And then the Habs staffers defending Logan Mailloux gaslighting victims. Just talked about that with the Habs. What in the holy hell is simultaneously happening? So, Ian Cole, I'm not going to go into all of the details about this, but when I woke up today, I saw a bunch of tweets, and there were some group chat messages going around about Ian Cole, and there were rumors or news over the summer. I don't know how confirmed they were that he had cheated on his wife with a reporter for the Carolina Hurricanes. She was engaged. He was, I believe, married. Which, of course, is shitty. But, you know, if there's two consenting adults that fuck up, there's two consenting adults that fuck up, and that happens, sadly, all the time. That is not on the same level as what we saw with Chicago and Kyle Beach, and definitely not on the same level as Hockey Canada. Again, I don't know the full details about that story with Ian Cole and the reporter out of Carolina. From what I gathered, it was two consenting adults that just really, really fucked up. And of course you have Ian Cole with, he has more power in that relationship because he is a player, and you give somebody access to the team. It's a whole clusterfuck. But today there was an anonymous Twitter account, and there were some allegations against him that are very, very above that. It has to do with sexual harassment, sexual abuse. So, trigger warning if you do feel like looking it up. If you, if you are heavily involved in the hockey world and on hockey Twitter, you've probably seen things about it. But I will say, don't look it up if you are not in the mental state to do so. It has to do with sexual abuse, and there was a minor involved, and that's what I'm going to say about that. That came out this morning. And when I had talked about news breaking while I was recording this, now I have to go find the tweet that I saw. So from Chris Johnston, Reporter Chris on Twitter, @Reporter Chris, the Tampa Bay Lightning, because Ian Cole was under contract with the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Tampa Bay Lightning have suspended Ian Cole while the NHL conducts an investigation into allegations that he groomed and sexually assaulted an underage woman. So that basically lays out what happened there. Again, not going into the full details. If you want to look it up, it's easily accessible. Again, it's an anonymous Twitter account, but believe survivors, believe victims, believe women. Just know that maybe as more things come out, maybe some details will change. But believe women. And I was thrown off. I was distracted when I saw this pop up, this tweet from Chris Johnston, as I said, because I was surprised that they did anything about it, especially so soon and from a quote-unquote unconfirmed source. We know the things that happened with him in Carolina, as I briefly mentioned before. I don't know the exact details, so I can't say that I'm an expert on everything that happened there. But he has a history. And good on Tampa Bay for suspending him while they investigate. Now, it's up to the NHL to actually do a thorough investigation, and we'll see what comes of it. I don't have faith in the NHL to do this properly. Of course, they only fined the Chicago Blackhawks $2 million for everything that happened with Kyle. They had to pay out more in settlements and all that, but the NHL itself only fined them $2 million and then did absolutely nothing when Rocky Wirtz had his outburst at the Blackhawks town hall. So I have very little faith in the NHL as an organization to do this correctly. And we will have to see where that goes, but I will give props to the Tampa Bay Lightning for taking that first initial step and suspending Ian Cole while the investigation is ongoing, because that is something that we don't really see often in the hockey world. They say there's an investigation, we have to let this play out, and meanwhile this person still is just going about their daily life. But instead, this time, Tampa chose to suspend him while they are doing the investigation, and I am glad that they did so. I support that. I appreciate that they did that. These things go way deeper than hockey, and while we may be rivals on the ice, not the Blackhawks and Tampa, I'm just saying in general, just your team and any team. While you may be rivals on the ice, it's what happens off the ice that is more important, because that deals with people's actual lives and well-being. So good on Tampa for taking that step, and we will see where it goes. I can't say that I will be diligently reporting on it on these podcasts, but I will keep you updated if we get any updates, if and when, I'll say. It's very unpredictable with the NHL when they decide to release things, but we will see. So I will also agree with Ian Kennedy, what is simultaneously happening, but at the same time, none of it is really shocking with everything that has really come out lately. And of course, things trickled out here and there about different NHL organizations and teams and staff members or players before everything came out about the Blackhawks and Kyle Beach. But I feel like after that, things just kind of ramped up significantly. And that's good. I don't say it's good because these things happened. Obviously, that's very bad. And I wish we didn't have to hear about these things. But I wish we didn't have to hear about them because they didn't happen. But since they did happen, I'm glad that they are now coming to light and maybe people will finally be held responsible for their actions instead of just being given pass after pass after pass because they're talented. That's so messed up on so many different levels. Yeah. So that's what I have to say about that. I was going to talk about the Blackhawks and the Maple Leafs preseason in this episode, but now we're getting almost close to an hour and a half. I will have separate videos for the Blackhawks and the Maple Leafs as a preview to the seasons, and as I said, the Cozy Cast tomorrow will be more of a preview of the season, so I will go more into my takeaways from the preseason on those things. I think this is a good place to end it. There's no real good way to make a hard left turn here out of a very deep topic and then just be like, okay guys, preseason now. Let's talk about what happened. So yeah, I will leave you with that as a way to kind of wrap up everything going into the season, and then the Cozy Cast will be more of a preview and talk about some of the things that came to my mind while watching these preseason games, because it relates to how the team may play or may look during the regular season. I think that'll maybe just fit a little better, and we'll just leave this one kind of on a bit of a downer note, knowing that we'll be back tomorrow and maybe there will be some positive developments. I am leaving it on a downer note, like I just said, but it is positive that an NHL team is actually doing something about allegations for once and seemingly taking them seriously by suspending the player. So again, good on Tampa for doing that. And that is your high note to end this on, is that maybe, just maybe, my friends, change is coming, and all of us who are fans of this wonderful sport of hockey, just this unfortunate league that is the National Hockey League, maybe all of our voices will finally be loud enough to encourage change and have people held accountable, and that'll just make the league better. It'll make enjoying the sport easier. It'll make the players' lives better. They won't have to... It's not the biggest of the concerns, but if they are actually taught these things from an early age, saying, starting in junior, given courses on what sexual misconduct is and what to do if you hear about a teammate doing something bad, who you can go to, having people within all of these organizations that players and staff members can trust, maybe they won't have to worry about their careers being impacted, because they will have this real world knowledge instead of being these sheltered hockey players that think they can get away with anything. And like I said, that's the least of the concerns, having their careers impacted. But if they're not out there doing all of these horrible things, then there are less victims and survivors in the long run. Because hockey culture has taken a shift and changed. And that is the place that we can all hope to get to. That is why hockey needs fans like us who are aware of what is going on and not just brushing it to the side saying, who cares? Because these things can really, really, really deeply impact people and change their lives. And we may not ever meet these survivors or victims that have gone through horrible things at the hands of these players we love to watch, but you just have to have empathy and care for other human beings in this world. Life is hard to get through without having to go through anything like this. Adding that on top of it, you should never want anybody to have to go through that. And when they do, the people responsible need to be held accountable. And hopefully we are seeing that shift in the NHL, which will then trickle down to all of the organizations that feed into this league that we watch daily. That is what we can hope for. But I know that I'm preaching to the choir here. I know that people who listen to From Center Ice, people who watch or listen to our podcast, people who watch the videos about games, I know that the majority, the vast majority, 99.9% of you care about your fellow humans and you want to see the world as a better place and you want to see people improve. You want to see the leagues improve. You want to see conditions improve so people don't have to worry about being victims, whether outside women or men or non-binary friends being victims of hockey players or the players themselves being victims, whether of their teammates or staff members. So all we can do is keep talking about these horrible things, as unfun as that is. But the more we talk about it, the more people are held accountable and more people will keep coming forward and feel okay enough to bring their stories forward and get the help that they need and deserve. So that's what we can hope for, my friends. Sports can be an escape from the real world, but behind all of that, there are real people involved. And if we want to keep enjoying this sport and this league, we need to make sure that we leave it better than we found it. So thank you all so very much for tuning into this Sunday night episode of the From Center Ice Happy Hour. Things will get back on schedule now that the regular season's here. I'm ready to be endlessly busy again talking to all of you about hockey, be it the Cozy Cast, the Happy Hours, the episodes with Jacqueline, the videos about Blackhawks and Leafs and Ice Hogs games, all of the above. I'm ready, and hopefully within all of that, we can together encourage people to demand change and demand things be better for everybody so we can just love the sport of hockey in peace and people won't be in pain because of it or the people involved. So again, thank you so very much. I appreciate each and every one of you. I know this episode is long. I'm sorry, but I think that this was an important way to end it because there were just a lot of things that happened today, and I just so happened to be recording today. But if you would like to hear more from me or from Center Ice, if you are watching this on YouTube, this is where you will find all of the content that comes out, podcasts, videos, all of that lives on the YouTube page, youtube.com/c/FromCenterIce. If you are listening to the audio only version of this, you will get each and every podcast episode. And if you would leave a rating and a review, that would make me so very happy. But if you would like to watch me talking about this, or watch the other videos or the episodes with Jacqueline here as well, go over to the YouTube page and subscribe there. All of the links are down in the show notes or in the description on YouTube for you, so you can have everything there. And the easiest way, aside from the show notes and description, just go to FromCenterIce.com. Easy peasy. I try to make it as easy for you as possible. There's links to absolutely everything over there. We also have a merch store now, FromCenterIce.shop. So that is also super easy. I found this on the web. No, thank you, Siri. I don't need you pulling up my own website for me. Anyway, on the merch store, we have a bunch of stuff. T-shirts, hats, cups, mugs, sports bras, sandals. There's a bunch of different stuff. It's through Teespring, which is now just Spring. So go over there, support us if you would like. I know we would greatly appreciate it. We don't get paid to do this, so having the support from you guys means a whole lot. But yeah, FromCenterIce.com, FromCenterIce.shop. There is a link to the merch on the website as well, so just FromCenterIce.com for everything, really. And yeah, thank you all again so much for tuning in to this. I will see you all tomorrow for the From Center Ice Cozy Cast. Hopefully it's a little more upbeat toward the end, because we will be looking forward to the regular season. But again, this was very important to talk about, and myself, and I don't often speak for my podcasting partner here in Jacqueline, but I know that she believes this as well. We just want things to get better. We want our listeners and viewers and our hockey friends to feel safe in this environment, and the best way to do that is to keep talking about it and demanding change. So with that, I'm going to go edit this episode. I am going to go probably eat something. Sounds like a good idea. It's 8 o'clock now, and I will catch you all in the next episode. Have a wonderful Sunday night, and if you don't listen to the Cozy Cast tomorrow, have a great week and great first week of the regular season, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Bye, guys.